Thank you guys and girls for coming tonight. I'm very excited to share with you guys a toolkit that I've been working on for the better part of a couple of months with two members of the community who have been instrumental in making this toolkit work. The toolkit's called PS AD Health, and it's about automating AD health checks. And the premise behind this toolkit is really about trying to save you some time. I'll go into that in a little bit, but before I get started, I do want to acknowledge the two guys that have been busting their butt helping me with this. I think both of the guys are in the online chat tonight. One is someone I've become good friends with, Greg Onstadt, who lives out on the West Coast. I met Greg after I wrote a chapter in the PowerShell conference book last year, and he read it, and he had reached out to me and said, hey, I like what you did. You know, I found a couple of mistakes in your code, and could we talk about that? So, but he also had some ideas, and we sort of started sharing ideas back and forth, and we wanted to sort of expand the idea of a toolkit. And Greg wrote a lot of great scripts to do what we're talking about tonight. And then a few months later on, we had Steve Aldinger, who was a presenter here for our group, I think last May, and he did toast notifications. And Steve and I have become very friendly over the past few months, and he's helped me solve some code issues pretty much weekly, it seems like, and he was itching to help out. And Steve was very instrumental in building the framework that makes the tool that I'm going to present tonight portable so that you guys can actually download and install it. So I'd like to say this is our toolkit. I'm the one presenting it, but these guys really worked hard, and I want to make sure they get their due credit for this. So with that being said, let's get started here. What do I got to do with events? Screen. Oops, let's go back. All right. All right, so PSAD Health is a toolkit, as I just said, written by the three of us. We're open sourcing it. It's available for download. I would say right now we're somewhere between like an alpha and a beta stage. It consists of 11 scripts to check various things about AD. I feel very confident in 7 to 8 of the scripts right now. We got a couple of bugs to work out in the last 2 or 3. But the goal of this, I'm going to be talking about this topic at the PowerShell Summit next month, and the goal is to have this tool ready to be used by anybody with documentation and examples and all the things that come with a toolkit by the end of next month. So we have been moving very quickly on this tool. Steve and myself, we spent 6 hours last night online just kind of going through bugs and making things work. It's out on GitHub. The link is up here. I'm going to show you guys the repo in a little bit. I welcome you guys to take a look at it and tell me what you think. I really have 2 ideas for this toolkit, which is one, if you need a toolkit to do what we're going to talk about tonight, then we want this toolkit to be able to be downloadable, a couple of clicks, it's up and running, and there's not much to do. If you're a tinkerer and you want to pull down the toolkit and pick it apart, expand it with your own tools, take ideas from it for your own stuff, I mean, that's absolutely fine too. We want to try to accommodate all uses. Being that it's open source, I really would love if anybody has ideas to extend this toolkit, to reach out and say hello, be part of the project. It's pretty easy to collaborate online, and there's things to do for any skill level. So that's the long and short of the toolkit. I'm going to give you a little bit of a run through of it, but before I do that, I wanted to kind of give you guys a sense of an idea of how this toolkit came around. And about a year ago, I had this idea that maybe I could get an intern at work or an assistant. And I started to say, well, what would I give that assistant to do if I was able to get an assistant to help me? And I started thinking about what kind of tasks could I offload off of my plate so I could get to other stuff that would be easy, something that someone else can do, and they can sort of run with it and just come to me when they had a problem. Well, as things usually go at my place, no assistant, no intern. But I stuck with the idea, and I thought to myself, well, I don't really need a person. I can sort of automate these tasks and really create these tasks that could just do work for me and only give me a heads up when something is not what I expect it to be. Otherwise, get out of the way. I really don't want to know about you. So that was really the genesis of this project. So we started writing some scripts about things about AD that's sort of getting forgotten, but could be automated and checked. And the interesting thing that I find about AD is that, you know, AD runs pretty well on its own. I think everybody here probably has AD running at their environment. And if I asked every one of you here, everybody probably has just a little bit different setup than everybody else. But yet, no matter what the setups that we choose, it kind of just runs. To Microsoft's credit, you know, it's pretty resilient. But there are those pieces that people just count on to be there to work. And when they don't, it's not always the easiest to figure out what happened or why. And on top of that, you don't always have the tools to let you know that these things don't really work as expected. So like in my shop, we use SolarWinds, but there's just certain parts of AD that just SolarWinds does not tell you about. Now, if you work in a real big shop and you can buy customized AD monitoring tools and you can tell how many transactions a second are going in and out of the database and all that good stuff, then this tool may not be for you. But if you work in a small shop, you may not even have a tool. So we built this tool to kind of fill in the gaps that are missing from other tools, but there's a couple of scripts in there like up-down status of DCs. Just in case someone doesn't have that, you have, you know, you can set up a rudimentary alerting thing of your own. And that's kind of where we got started. And this is what the toolkit does. So the toolkit is basically meant to check AD health areas and keep an eye on things, because honestly, these are the things that most people don't watch. Time sync and replication, disk space on DCs, and when was the last time you had a backup of AD, which should happen every day with your backup software, but did it? Do you know that? Are your core AD services running? Now, someone might say, well, what do you mean if you don't know if your core AD services are run? What I mean is that, let's take time sync, for example. How do most people find out that there's a time sync issue in their environment? CEO's assistant calls and says, how come the time on my phone is different than the time on my computer? Or the shop floor calls and says, punch cards are not working right because there's 3 minutes difference from the time they checked in and what it says on their card, and it's a screwing up our payroll. And the point I'm trying to bring out is these are the kind of problems that I find that only come through end user reporting and are like the most embarrassing situations to have to answer. Like, how come you guys don't know that the time is off in your environment? Or, you know, we use replication for DFS, and I pushed out some data to a share and it didn't make it to 4 of the offices because no one realized replication between 3 of the offices was broken. And they've been installing the wrong script for 3 days, you know, that kind of stuff. So that was really the idea behind building these tools. So, you know, it's all pretty self-explanatory. You know, there's these areas and there's scripts that match up to these things here. And the idea with these scripts is, you know, when I put the meetup out, I put a picture of a dashboard in the meetup. And I hope that doesn't lead anybody to the wrong sort of conclusion, because there's no dashboards in this tool. There's no daily disk space reports. There's no uptime reports. There's no fancy dashboards to look at to see what's going on. It's just down and dirty scripts that run and do something, and they run in the background via scheduled task or scheduled job, and they don't do anything unless there's a problem. But when there's a problem, they let you know there's something going on. And that's really what the toolkit is meant to be. Simple tools that solve the problem for you so that you can move on to other stuff. I'm wondering what all the laughter is over here. I could just imagine
We're just waiting to heckle. We're just waiting.
That's cool. Go for it.
I actually had a question. You know,
Sure.
Some of the things that you were talking about, it sounded like they came from hard-earned experience and some scar tissue.
You know, there's people that give talks and they can talk about, like, this is the way error correction works, or when Jeff Hicks comes in here and he can talk about the theory of all this stuff. Pretty much everything you'll ever see from me is a purpose-built solution. I tell people every article I wrote should be changed to this is a problem I just solved in work, and every speaker that I ask to talk is usually something that I'm trying to learn. So the same thing here. These are all problems that I've personally dealt with that just are a pain in the ass. and I'm tired of getting burned on them. So the funny part about AD is that most people, when they think of automation, it's user creation, it's onboarding, getting people into groups, offboarding. It's not about checking if my DCs are up, my replication is working, you know, are we syncing our time externally and internally? So that's why I focused on this, because there's plenty of tools to do that other stuff. And like I said, this is really to dive into sort of the nooks and crannies of AD more than the big stuff that everybody deals with every day. And we were not looking to build tools to replace other tools. Like everybody, you know, I had a few people ask me like, yeah, dude, why do I need this? I got DC Diag, that's everything I need. And I'm like, not really. And if you've ever run DC Diag, it's a great tool, but what it is it's basically a checklist, and you got to read through it, and you got to parse the data out, and you got to figure out if every alert that shows up in that log is useful or it's just some extraneous event that comes up. So you kind of have to take that tool, and you have to have some knowledge, and you have to figure out what to do with it. I didn't want that. We wanted tools that gave us, hey, this is a problem, and here's why, right? And the toolkit is 11 scripts right now, and we plan to grow it, but they're 11 simple scripts. Each script is a simple tool that does one function and hopefully does it really well. And as I said earlier, there's no charts, there's no dashboards, there's no daily reports, there's none of that crap, because I already got disk-based reports, and I don't look at them. And I already have time usage and SolarWinds, and I never look at any of it. I just want to know when there's a problem. And if there's no problem, go away. Just leave me alone. Let me do whatever I got to do. So that's the way that these tools were built. I know not everybody likes to work that way, but I think if you're a sysadmin and you support AD along with servers up and client services and I can't print and all that crap, you jump from issue to issue, plus projects that you have to manage, and you do what you got to do and you move on. So that's kind of how my day goes, and that's the way I write tools.
Thanks, Mike.
So this is not what I would call fully baked yet. We're pretty close. It's 11 scripts, but I can only demo 7 or so of them tonight. We'll go through what we can. I'll answer any questions you guys have. I'll show you guys a little bit about how the scripts work, how you get it installed, the framework that we did to do this stuff, and we'll see where it goes. So these are some notes for me to make sure I come back to. I wanted to make sure everybody saw the website address. I want to quickly talk about installation. It's pretty simple. So here's the repo for the website. I mean, for the tool, excuse me. We have some simple instructions at the bottom here, how to install. We're going to expand this out. I need to make examples, some more stuff like that. But right now, it's as simple as this. You can click here. You say download zip. You're going to get a zip file. Okay, you're downloading a module. You save that zip file somewhere on your machine. You're going to unzip the file. Inside that zip, there's going to be a subfolder of the same name. You're going to rename that to PSAD Health from PSAD Health-Master. It's very simple. And you're going to copy that folder to one of these two paths. These are where modules belong on your machine. And once you put it there, you're going to go to a PowerShell command prompt. You're going to type import module PSAD Health, and you've now installed your module and you're done. I'm not going to do the install tonight because I have a little demo environment and I'm afraid I'm going to blow it up, and then you guys are going to say that was disappointing. So after you get the tool installed, you should be able to run get command module, name of the module, and you should get back a bunch of scripts. And I mean, that's the tool in a nutshell. We're going to go through some of these scripts and show you how they work, but that's the install process. And once it's installed here, these are functions. You can run these right now. That's what I'm going to do. I intended that these run as scheduled tasks or scheduled jobs, but you don't have to do that. You can run them on demand like I'm going to do tonight. And the only reason I'm running them on demand is it's just easier than dealing with the scheduled tasks right now. But the way I envision it is you set up a scheduled task, you call the function, you set it on the schedule that you think is You know, how often do you want to check your DCs are up? You want to check every 2 minutes? You want to check every 3 hours? That's up to you, and it runs. All these scripts are set to email right now, email out, but we are trying to build in other functionality. So that means we'd like to send Slack notifications, team notifications, toast notifications. You know, we're trying to make this tool as adaptable to your environment as possible, but right now it's set up to send email alerts. And the way that we do that is when we originally started out with these scripts, they all kind of had the same format, which was a bunch of variables at the top, a block of code in the middle to do something, and then at the bottom was basically the same send mail message in every one. Hey, we get some results. Take those results. If they meet, if they pass or fail a test, send out those results. And we started thinking, you know, that's not exactly the most efficient way to do things, to have the same send mail message in 17 scripts. So what we did is we moved all the variables from most of these scripts to a JSON file. So there's a config file that's included in this tool, and you configure your variables in the config file, and you do that once, and you're basically done. I'm going to show you that right now. So the first commandlet in this tool set here is get AD config, and there's on the instructions page, it explains this a little bit more, but if I was to run this right now, get AD config, you're going to get the default, oops, you're going to get the default, so you don't have to put the SMTP server in every script that's out there. These are just some default variables that are used in the various scripts to do certain things. So every script needs to be able to send mail, so we set the SMTP server once, instead of having to do it a million times. This is set to localhost because I have a mail server running. This is a self-contained environment. I'm basically sending mail to myself tonight. You set who you want mail to go to and from who. The to field is an array, so you could send it to multiple email addresses. The rest of the variables that are in this config file are all related to various commandlets, like the max instance backup has to do with our backup script. Free disk threshold is for our disk space alerts, and I have them set abnormally high so I can generate some alerts tonight. Time drift settings. Where do you want to check your time against? What are your DNS servers? Things of that nature. We also have a support article link. That was meant so that when you set this up in your environment, if you want to put your own internal link to a help desk page, you can deploy this module and you can have people pull up the help, and you can point them to your own help, or you can create as much or as little help as you want. You don't have to get asked every question about how to do this. The Slack token is a work in progress. We're working on getting Slack notifications going, but that's the idea. We have one config file that has all the basic variables that you need. So again, if you go back to the beginning, you download a zip, you install it. After you install the module, you can run a command, set ps ad health config. And I'm not going to run that because I don't want to overwrite my thing. And then you would just set your parameters based on those names there. You know, dash SMTP server, you set it to your internal mail server. And that's it, you're done. The tool is running. The only thing you have to do at that point is schedule tasks if that's what you want to do. And as I mentioned earlier, you don't have to do that. You can run this on demand as you need it. That's what I'm going to start doing now. I guess I should stop here and just see if anybody has any questions about anything I've talked about so far, or anything that's not so clear. Anybody have any questions?
Nothing in the chat. Nope. The JSON file that you have created, is that within the modules?
So there's a default JSON that's included in the module. It's controlled through the AD config command. So there's a default one, and what you see on the screen here right now is the default settings. I monkeyed with them a little bit because I need to be able to make sure I can get some alerts to trigger for you guys. But this is what's going to come down. That's what your JSON is going to look like. And then you run this guy here, set PSAD health config, and you just you call out the params that are in this that you want to set, and you have to specify a configuration path, and then you're done. And I would love to show that to you guys, but I'm afraid I'm going to blow up my demo. So that's the one thing I don't want to do. I will put some examples out on the repo. It's a very simple process. I probably did it 20 times this week. After you set your config parameters in that JSON, you're basically done because all the scripts are built to read from that JSON. That's really the thing that's held us up the most, is getting that JSON to work the way we want. And I will tell you, I'm still not 100% in love with the setup that we have. The JSON process is a little bit new to me. Steve Aldinger has really been helping me out with that, so help me understand how that works. But what I wanted to do is to be basically as simple as possible for someone to download and configure. And I know probably documentation makes that the easiest. Right now, it's a little thin on documentation. But the idea is, one central place to store all your parameters. You set them once. You don't have to monkey with any of the scripts. When the scripts come down, there's in your modules folder, the PSAD help, there's a public folder. I mean, you can browse right in here and you can open up any one of these scripts, which we're going to do tonight, and you'll see this. They're not the craziest scripts in the world. They're all purpose-built. They do a single thing, and I hope they do them really well. But what's interesting is you could add your own scripts in here. All you need to do is write your function that you want to do, place it in this folder. You'd have to go up one level and update the PSD file for the module and add in the name of your function. And now your function is part of the toolkit. That may seem challenging to someone who may be new to some of these concepts, but I assure you that's something that's pretty simple to do. You could get through it pretty easily. So the point being is, if you don't have any experience with this stuff, you can download the tool, set it up, and you can be up and running hopefully in 10 or 15 minutes without any real work. If you're someone that's got a little bit deeper skill set and you want to pick the stuff apart, go for it. If you want to extend it with your own scripts that you already have, that's great too. The only thing I would ask is, why don't you share them with the project so we can give them to everybody? But that's your prerogative. So with that being said, I want to go through some of the tests and show you guys what we have. Before I do that, I wanted to give you a little rundown of my environment that I have here. As I said, this is a talk I'm going to be doing at the summit. The summit basically told me you got to be self-sufficient. You can't count on a internet connection. So I have a domain and a box here. What I have here is I'm running a HyperV environment with 2 DCs and 2 member servers, of which one is not being used tonight. It's a server 01. So server 02 is a member server. It's running 2012. DC1 and DC2 are 2016 domain controllers. And the member server is just there to act as basic contact. Who's enjoying a snack?
Called karma.
I hope it's good.
So server 02 is also my mail server. I'm running probably the most basic mail server in the world. It's a little app I found. I'm a Windows guy. I couldn't set up a Linux mail server to save my life. So this is a little Windows tool that runs. I'm sending mail to myself. This is a mobile interface, and you're going to see it's going to send out a bunch of emails. So with that being said, let's start walking through some of these things here and see how they work. So probably let's start with disk space, right? So what this is, actually, let me show you some code. That's probably what you guys are interested in rather than running tests.
So are all those tests basically read-only? Like they're not going to modify anything?
So, that's an interesting question, because I was speaking to someone online, and he's like, hey, man, you did all this work. Why don't you just have the tool fix the problem? And I was like, that's great if you know what the problem is. Yeah. But so right now, this is a notification tool. There's nothing's getting modified here.
So the only to play around with this.
Right. So the only thing that I would say that's going to get modified is we're working on building a login. Because right now, all these tools, the notification is your log, right? If the notification doesn't make it to you for some reason, you really don't have a history. So we're going to be building in the ability to write to the event logs as well as send an email or to Slack or to Teams or whatever. So you can, if you're a shop that's got a SIM that sucks up logs and you really can leverage that, then that's something you really want. But that's not there yet. Actually, some of the replication scripts have that. but we're still working some of that out. The replication scripts are probably the one thing I probably won't be able to show you guys tonight. I can talk them through, they just don't run very well. But let me show you what we do have. So this is what the module looks like from a code standpoint. So you're looking at my GitHub, my local copy of my GitHub repo. And if you were to pull this down, this is what you would get. You would get a config folder, a private folder, a public folder, a PSD, a PSM. The README is what's actually on the GitHub website, and some non-module scripts that some stuff we're playing around with. So the config is the JSON that we had talked about, and that's what I had showed you on the screen before. This isn't really what you wouldn't edit it here, right? You would run it through a command and set your variables. But you know, all the scripts that you will run sit right here in the public. You know, so I was going to look at disk space, right, and give you guys a little walkthrough of how this works, and you'll see. I don't think there's a whole lot of code in here that people are going to go, wow, that's the most amazing thing that happens. But what they do is they do something that I keep saying simple. They do one thing well, and that's what they're built for. So this here is a function. Is there a question? Sorry.
Yeah, Anthony had a question. He said, do you need to run on a few different domain controllers to ensure that it's tested from everywhere?
So does his question, is it pertaining to the disk space or just in general?
I don't have any other.
Right. Well, I can talk about
In general.
that in general. So Anthony, the reason that I have two domain controllers is because I would have liked to be able to show you guys how we test replication. And in order to replicate, you need to have more than one DC, right? But at the same token, these scripts are built to be able to find out if you have multiple DCs and account for those situations. So like, for example, the first thing that's happening here is I'm pulling from AD a list of domain controllers, okay? And then I'm saving that to a variable. And then we're going to go out and we're going to query those domain controllers. So what this script is doing, it's going to reach out to each domain controller and check the disk space. And in our config file, we have a threshold. So I set it to 70%, which is obviously a ridiculously high threshold. But say it's set to 20%. It's going to go out. It's going to measure how much free disk space is on your C partition. It's going to turn that into a percentage. It's going to do some math. And if it meets the criteria, it's going to send an alert. So going back to Anthony's question, it's purpose-built. It figures out how many DCs you have in your domain, and it queries all of them. If you have one, it's one. If you have 30, like I have in my production environment, it's going to query all of them and check them all at the same time. So, and that's what we're doing here. We're going through a loop. For each server in my DC list, we're going to go out and we're going to query disk. Drive type 3 is a local disk. It's going to do some math to figure out the size. It's going to save it to a bunch of variables. And it's going to calculate total disk and free disk and a percentage, and it's going to do some comparison to say, hey, how does that compare to my JSON threshold? And then, hey, guess what? If it meets that, here's a mail body that's going to send out. And as you see down here, here's some mail parameters. And this used to be a bunch of statements, and each one that said send mail message to, from, SMTP server, subject, message. And that got old. So we built it into the JSON. So it picks up. So what this here is configuration. That's the variable for the JSON. Right, so we're reading from $ configuration, and then we're just picking up the parameters, the mail to, the mail from, the SMTP server. I have a subject built in here into this script that's not in the JSON, right, because that's specific to the script, right? An email body built into the script. And we're going to take that information, we're going to send an email. So with any luck, we can run that, and I gotta get in the right machine here. So if I get DC disk space, I mean, that's it. There's no parameters. Just run it, right? It's very silent. There's nothing to look at. With any luck here, I should get an email. And there you go. We got an email. It's a very simple email. Server name DC01 is running low on disk space. It's got a 40 gig partition. There's only 20 gig free. It's 50%. I set a threshold of 70 so I get an alert. Purpose built. Tells me what I need to know so I can do something about it, and I move on. Same thing here. DC2, low on disk space. Some simple formatting in an email. Obviously, we can make the emails a little bit more elaborate. You You can send them to Teams or Slack and do what you want with them. But the idea is, if this is running on a scheduled task, this runs on an interval. Maybe I'm not looking at my DCs every day. Maybe I didn't realize that somebody copied up some giant file to the sysfile partition, blowing up the space. Or maybe I didn't pay attention to the thousands of Microsoft patches that have been coming down for the last 8 months, and I'm getting a little low on disk space. So here it is. It runs every day, day and night, every hour or every 5 minutes, whatever you like. And there you go. You get an email alert. And you can make it so that you can get as many as annoying email alerts as you like until you fix the problem. And then when the problem goes away, the tool just blends into the background and you forget about it again. And that's exactly what we wanted the tool to do. And the rest of the tools would work exactly the same way. I'll take a quick break and make sure somebody doesn't have any questions about that. 946. I can't see the chat, so
like the config file is kind of a golden state of what you want it to be, like what you want the disk space to be, as well as what the parameters are of, like, say, email?
So,
Is that the concept?
well, I think the concept is this, is that the parameters that are in here are parameters that are probably not changing. External DNS servers don't change very often. Thresholds for mail alerts, probably you're not going to change that often. So what we did is we took the parameters that were in each of these scripts, and the ones that we said, yeah, that doesn't need to be hard-coded in the script, and that's something that we could just stash away set once. So that's kind of the barometer we use to stick in a global JSON. Like, for example, max space and backup. That was a parameter in a script. And after we made the JSON, it became painfully obvious, like, you got a JSON now. Why are you going to ask someone to go into one script and set one variable? So as we built the JSON, more of the variables started moving to the JSON itself, rather than, so that you see, I didn't set a single variable or a parameter on my get DC state. I just run it. It just does the checks for me. So, you know, most of these scripts that you're going to see, there's not a lot of parameters in them because you're just checking one piece of AD. So it's like one or two things, like time drift. We have a time drift that we want to allow internally and externally. There's nothing else to check. So you set it once and you forget it. So I guess the one variable or the couple of variables that could change is your Slack token, support article, who you're going to send the mail to, right? That obviously could change on a regular basis. But the rest of them, I think, would probably stick around and stay static most of the time.
So you get those mail messages every time you run that command?
Well, so I'm running the commands on demand, right? I envision that you're going to run them through a scheduled task. So then they're going to come on the schedule that you set when you set your scheduled task. So, I mean, like when I had these built in my environment, like DCs up and down, I have SolarWinds, I have a monitoring tool. So like Jonathan had mentioned a couple of meetings ago, I don't really control SolarWinds, and our SolarWinds isn't exactly the healthiest right now. So I built my own monitoring tool to kind of compensate for that. I set my alerts to go every 5 minutes because if a DC is down, it's probably a big deal, right? And yeah, I get an alert every 5 minutes until it's fixed, but that's probably right. But, you know, maybe your environment once every 2 hours is right for you. I don't know, but it's going to fire off, it's going to check, and if it fails the test, it's going to send an email. So you just, honestly, the nuanced part of this toolkit is finding out the intervals that work for you guys to send out alerts. You could check your disk space once a month if you wanted to. I don't know that that's going to give you a lot of benefit, though. And I would think as you build each individual scheduled task or scheduled job, probably the time interval on each one of those is going to be different. Like checking an external time drift, it's probably a once a day or once a week kind of deal. Whereas DC's up and down, that's obviously maybe an hourly thing or something like that.
What you may want to do is have it only repeat every couple hours if it finds something that's violated your threshold for that command.
So the replication scripts are kind of interesting. So Greg really had a hand in a lot of the replication scripts, and he's sort of built this idea where we test replication, and we write to the logs, we send an alert, but then we also come back around and say, hey, that problem went away. So that is sort of unique to the replication scripts now, but I think I like that concept, and I'd like to get that into all the scripts. So there's a test to tell you there's a problem, but there's a test to also say the problem went away. You know, especially if you're relying on email. You know, like all of a sudden I got a bunch of alerts and then they just stopped coming. I guess the problem went away. It would be nice to get a little confirmation, like, hey, this space cleared on this backup. Again,
You're gonna store state of the system mid-review?
excuse me?
You're gonna store state of the system?
Well, it depends what it is. I mean, there's no state on like a disk space check. It's just,
No.
is it below or above, right?
Actually, there is. There's this, if you faulted, that's a state. If you didn't,
Yeah,
That's what I
so,
mean, fault
but
state.
there's a reason to do what he says, because if you have certain faults will cause other faults to happen.
mm-hmm.
And you don't want to keep sending mail, like if you're checking every hour, you don't want to keep sending mail every hour that this thing faulted.
Yes, I agree. I agree.
Yeah,
Unless you cleared the fault and then it happened again.
Yeah.
But also, if you can, which is very hard, you want to know, like, if this thing goes down, then don't worry about any of these alerts that depend upon it. So, like, if you lose a switch,
Mhm.
you're going to lose everything behind that switch.
Yeah, so you know, with all the monitoring tools, that's always been sort of the holy grail, which is the smarts to know that
Yeah.
if the router goes down in a remote site, then you're going to get a message on every single server or device behind the router,
Yeah.
right?
yeah, that's,
I would say, look, disk space and up down, I don't think those are.
You may want to keep state on it. So, like,
Mhm.
if you can say, hey, I already alerted this guy on this thing, I'm not going to tell him every
Mhm.
single time. Especially if it's 2:00 in the morning and you're only using email, you're not going to pick up.
Agreed, and I don't disagree with you at all. I would say the way that we're working this project is sort of like crawl, walk, run, and I would say right now we're probably at the walk stage. So we've got purpose-built scripts that are sending alerts. Now we want to get some good logging, and then I think, you know, this is a project that we're going to carry on forward. And honestly, there's probably someone in this room that's going, wow, I can't believe he's not testing for X. That's exactly what I would want to find out about so we can expand the thing. But the idea is the tool is going to get better as we add in those sorts of.
you accepting pull requests?
Sure. Actually, you know, I posted this on Reddit about the talk, and I wrote up the instructions on how to install it super fast at 1:30 in the morning and completely botched all the commands. And somebody did a pull request and said, hey, you got this commandlet name wrong. And so I'm glad someone chimed in. But yeah, I would love for anybody to participate in that. So how am I doing on time? I'm getting long here, huh?
No. So somebody also mentioned in chat about checking disk drives, or Anthony actually, for different NTDS and sysvol. Some people put them in different drives, actual disk drives. So that's something to check about. So
Yeah.
there you go. There's an issue. Anthony, submit an issue.
Yeah.
Or submit an issue. If it gets fixed, it gets fixed. Otherwise, you know.
Or a pull request to add the feature.
So I definitely would say anybody who has questions, I mean, and as we go through these things, you're going to find the scenarios that probably are unique that we didn't account for. That is exactly right. Put an issue in there. I would love to design code to account for those. So yeah, definitely submit issues. In all my years, I'll be honest with you, I have never moved the Active Directory database off the C drive. It always ends up there, or because usually you walk into an environment you've inherited AD, right? And it's built from when the company was 3 people, and now they've grown, and it's the same AD. You don't have to start over. But I mean, yeah, it's a valid point. Is there any other questions in the chat?
Not that are appropriate.
All right, let me see what
I
else.
don't think so. I didn't.
All right, so let's go through some other here. I could take a DC down. Do people want to see? Let me just walk through.
A couple.
Same basic idea you're going to see in all these scripts where we query AD for a list of domain controls and then we do something. So here's an up-down test, okay? I mean, we're simply doing a test connection. right? If it's test connection, then it crosses a threshold, send an email, right? Very basic test. I would say those are really not the meat and potatoes of this tool. Let's talk about one that is kind of cool. So like testing external DNS servers. So now this needs a little bit of explanation because scope is important here. Let's say I have an environment with 10 domain controllers. Let's just say there's one domain controller in 10 sites, or there's 2 domain controllers in 5 sites, however you want to say it. I'm on a member server, and maybe the member server is in HQ. It doesn't help me to test from HQ to my external DNS servers. That's not the point of the test. What this test is doing is querying all our domain controllers, right? Picking up the DNS servers that are in our config, and then we're going to invoke command. We're going to go to each domain controller, and we're going to test, can I get to the external domain controller from that DC? Because that's what we're interested in. I don't care if I can get to the DC, to the external DNS servers in my building. I want to know in each site, can you get out to your external domain controllers? So this test does exactly that. We query DCs, we reach out to each DC, the DNS service can reach one, test is successful.
Somebody said salary earlier, I'm gonna go for chip.
Someone's having some fun. Same basic idea here. So I think, if I remember correctly, we configured in our tests in our config file here. If you guys are familiar with OpenDNS DNS servers, these are definitely not them. I purposely made bad DNS servers so that they would fail the test. All right, so if I test my
220 and 222, right?
220 and 222. Yeah. So that's going to be test external DNS servers. So this is going to run in the background. It's going to reach out and send us up a warning and tell us, hey, test connection from DC X to said external mail address did not work, failed. And that's what I want to know. I want to know, can my sites get out to their domain controllers, to their DNS servers? And you see here, this came through 4 times because I have 2 DNS servers set in the config, and I have 2 DCs here, so it tried each one on each server. So I got 4 emails in that situation. Anybody have any questions?
Is that just doing a ping, or is it actually trying to run a DNS query?
It's a good question. I think it's just doing a test connection. Let's go back and take a look. Yeah, it's doing a test connection out to the IP address. External time sync, same basic concept. And you can see here, this one we started building in some logging. Not 100% there yet, but we started building the ability to, not only do the test, but send the results to a log. So we're going to do the same basic thing here, and you'll see a lot of repetition here. This is going to reach out to our PDC emulator. It's going to figure out what the time server is for that and see if the PDC emulator can reach out to its time source. And then it's going to measure the time difference between what's on the PDC emulator and the external time source. And if it's greater than that drift value that we had in our config file, it's going to send that an alert. So I think we have a drift value of 15 seconds on external. And I think for me to get this one to work, I got to change the time on my machine. Oh, that's right. Not going to work. There's some policy control in that I forgot to shut off. All right, let's move on past that guy. another test that we have built in here is the checking our AD services. So most guys are familiar with this core services to AD that are important to make sure it's running. I included DHCP server in there because most people are running DHCP on their domain controllers, or a lot of people, I would say. If the service is not installed, it's just going to pass. It's just going to pass on that test and move along. But basically, it's going to go out and look for each one of these services and make sure that they're running. If it's not a running service, it's going to let you know that service is not running on the box. And I think I have gone ahead and pre-shut down a service. So we should be able to run a test here. Test AD services. And you see here, I got the stop service here. So again, I ran this as a function. You wouldn't normally see that output if you're doing a scheduled task. But part of the function records the name of the server that it did, even though I'm not sending the output here to the screen, so that when the alert comes through, you can tell where it came from. So
currently it only runs for a specific domain in the config file, or is it, can you do it for a whole forest? And
it's domain dependent right now. So this is saying Windows services, and it didn't tell me what services are. That's not right. That should have said, hey, DFS is not running. So I have a feeling I have a mistake in my code there. But the idea is check the core services. If services are running, do nothing. You see the same basic idea here with all the tests. What else can we show you? Any questions anybody's got?
asking them as we go.
All right.
I know Wade is working hard.
External time served SRV records. We could do that. So let me just engineer a little test here. So I guess just a little primer. There are core DNS records to Active Directory that are needed for you to be able to do certain location of services on the network, like global catalog servers, PDC emulator, things of that nature, where to go to find services on the network, and those are all contained within DNS. And those records are fairly important. Now, I will say that most of the time, records just don't disappear for no reason. But in a large environment with a lot of people that have the ability to make changes to the DNS, records disappear from time to time. And that's one of those things that until you find that and things are just not working right, it's a little bit hard to troubleshoot. So what we did is we were testing for 4 types of records here. So we're gonna test for global catalog, KDC, PDC, and DC service records in AD. We're gonna make sure that those records exist, and if they don't, we're gonna send them an alert. And the way that works, let's make sure we get a failure going here. Go over here, and I go into DNS. All right, so just if you're not sort of like super well versed with DNS, so what we're talking about is these are records that would be sitting up here in this MSDCS zone, and then I am down here, and in here I should have 1 record for every DC in my environment. So in this particular test, I should have 2 records here because I have 2 DCs. I've gone ahead and I deleted one already. So this is exactly the kind of thing I want to know about. So test SRV. Oops, I'm in the wrong environment. Same basic deal. So while we're waiting for that, I'm going to pull up an old one here. So here you go. So this is the test I ran last night, telling us there's a record missing in this zone, in this location in the zone, and at the time we ran the test. And, you know, please go and check your DNS for missing SRV records. Again, one of those things that's not that often that you need it, but when it goes missing, causes some problems, and it's not the first thing you think of, so not always the most obvious to check. So something that runs in the background and just does its thing for you makes it very simple. So we also have tests to test replication. Unfortunately, guys, I can't demo that for you, but I can talk about them. So in the AD commandlets, there is commandlets to test for replication failures, which will basically just pull out the info and report from rep admin, was there a failure? You know, what's the information? So we have a test. Thank you, sir. I got to pull that down now, so I'm going to pass on that.
He says he fixed the test AD service.
Yeah, but I got to pull it down from the repo and install it. And so,
get on it.
Yeah, get on it. So we run 3 different tests for replication. One is just simply going out and asking rep admin, is there any failures that you know of? Let me pull that up. And then that's this guy here. This is simply a script that there's a lot going on here, but it basically goes out and asks rep admin, was there any failures? Give me the information. It parses out the data and it tells you what it does. It also writes some stuff to the log. We also do 2 other types of
Sorry, I didn't read the whole thing, but you're just running rep admin and then just parsing its output?
Yeah, so we're not running rep admin. We're running basically the get AD replication failure commandlet, taking the results of that and turning it into a little bit more friendly output. So basically, we're taking that test and putting it on an autopilot. So that's one of the 3 tests that we do. The other 2 tests are really more of the real tests, which test sysfile replication and AD object replication. And in one of those tests, we actually create an object. We replicate it through the environment. We test on both sides to make sure it got there, and then we're
waiting for replication to happen, or you create an object?
So through rep admin, you can force replication to happen. You can bypass your replication schedule.
Yeah.
So we create an object, we replicate it, and then we test on the other side to make sure it got there.
So you're forcing a replication of
Yeah.
all 3 DCs on your schedule.
Yeah. So yeah, not on your schedule, on demand, right? To say just replicate this one object from point A to point B. And then when it gets to B, let me know that it got there. And if it got there, good. If it didn't, hey, let me know. Something may not be working right, right? So we're testing for sysfile replication. We're testing for individual object replication. And the object replication is actually a synthetic transaction. We create an object, we replicate it across. If it gets there, great. Then we blow away the object. If it doesn't get there, hey, something's wrong. I didn't really test DCs are online. I don't think that's the most exciting test in the world to say, hey, a DC is down. I could show you that if you want. I got to shut down a DC, but I think you guys kind of get the idea. We also do a test for AD backup. You may say, why do I need to test for AD backup? And the truth is you probably don't, because if you have a backup solution that's running every day and you have it pointed at your AD database and it's AD aware, it's probably taking an AD backup every day and you don't even have to think about it. So what if it's not, right? Or what if you don't have that? So we have a test that goes out, checks for the last AD backup. You can set a threshold how many days you want to know you can go without a backup, and if you don't see a backup within that threshold, send out an alert. That is really the bulk of the tests that we have configured at this point. I'd love some feedback. Let me know what you guys think. But that is really everything I wanted to show you guys tonight. Obviously, I have some polish to do on this, and we have some more stuff to add to these tools, but I would love some feedback, and if you have ideas for more tests to do, we would love to get them into this toolkit so that you guys can use it. So with that, I think I will say, well, actually, do you guys want to talk about the framework a little bit, about how we did this, and module and JSON? I kind of glossed over a little of that, but you had some questions earlier.
Well, I was just, so I pulled it down, just wanted to see what the framework kind of you used, and then just the idea of, public and that kind of stuff. So if you want to talk a little about that, I know we're kind of running a little, if anybody wants to hear about it, but I thought it was just, it's interesting to see what other people do as far as, setting up their modules. And, there's a lot of frameworks, especially with PS framework and that kind of stuff, but just it's a framework to build a framework, but, what are people using as their framework? And, I'm looking a little bit inside of your code as far as just even like scoping and, variable scoping and stuff like that. So that's kind of interesting to me too. So I don't even know if you want to talk about it, or maybe Steven wants to come offline and talk about it. That too.
Are the people muted?
They can unmute themselves.
Because I see it says John is speaking, and
Everybody should be muted on entry, but they need to unmute themselves.
oh, if you guys would like to ask questions, you can unmute yourselves. Feel free to chime in.
Just make sure to mute yourselves before you start eating your chips.
I saw a question come through from Anthony, but I didn't get a chance to read the whole thing.
I'd love to know your Microsoft code config for PowerShell development. I'm struggling to get past mine.
Yeah, I see.
ISE? So I've made the full-time switch to VS Code. I still use ISE because it's basically on every machine. So sometimes when you're just on a server and you need to pop open a script, it's there. But it took me personally a long time to get used to VS Code. But I do have a number of extensions installed that I do use. I also write articles. So when I write my articles, I actually write them in Markdown in VS Code. So I have some Markdown stuff here, but I'm using code spell checker and bracket pair, colorizer, and I like the Blackboard theme. And I'm running the PowerShell preview now, and some basic stuff, not too much more than that. And I don't have a big list of snippets that I use. I'm not, like super code developer. I bet you Steve Valding could probably give us more information about what this line is like. He does. Jonathan, you got to unmute yourself, buddy.
If you're talking, Jonathan, you got to speak up, or you can barely hear you. I hear a whisper.
Hey, Anthony, if you have questions, feel free to reach out to me, whether it be, email or Twitter, or, I would be happy to help you understand if you're having any trouble with your environment. That's what we're here for. It doesn't have to be limited to just what we're talking about tonight. So if you think you need some help with something, but I also say we record all these sessions, and about, 4 months ago, maybe longer, we had Tim Warner do a talk on VS Code, like a Get Started. It's on YouTube. I would recommend highly you watch that. It's a really good, 0 to 60 to get you up to speed quick on how to use VS Code. And actually, we're going to have him coming back in the summer to do a deeper dive on VS Code. If you guys have questions about the framework, if you guys have questions about the framework, I probably have to default to Steve on that, because Steve really is the nuts and bolts of putting that together. I was sort of learning from him. So I honestly probably couldn't tell you why we did what we did, other than, we have private scripts and public scripts, but how the JSON came to be and how it worked. I'm learning that with you guys as we do this with Steve. He's sort of the guy who knows that piece better than Greg and I. Greg, the other guy who's wrote scripts with us, did a lot of the replication stuff. He works for a very large enterprise customer on the West Coast and has a lot of AD experience. So between the three of us, we've be able to come up with some pretty good tests. But that's really the nuts and bolts of what this module is about. And like I said, I'm looking for feedback, and I hope you guys enjoyed what I had to present this evening. If you got questions or just want to see some more, let me know. Otherwise, I would say that's probably a wrap.
All right.
Pretty awesome, man.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hey, Mike, I've got just a comment on something I see in your code, and it's first, let me say it's a great start. I mean, you guys are doing good work here, but one of the things that I see that's maybe a potential for a couple versions down is thinking about scalability and scaling this out into a large domain. Doing tests against 10 DCs is different than doing it against 1,000.
Sure.
So there's probably some things that are in there. I've got some other thoughts about the output format and how you're doing that, but I'll save those for pull requests.
So, those are excellent points. And honestly, I don't know that we've really put a lot of thought into that because, the guy who wrote some scripts with this, Greg, who's on this call, Greg works in a large environment. I do not work in a very large environment. I got about 30 DCs that I manage, and running a test every 10 minutes against 30 DCs isn't the worst thing in the world, but I understand your point, obviously. These guys kind of worked from, hey, I had these scripts, and they kind of expanded them. I would bet at some point we're going to get to a point where it may almost be like start over. Like, we got the tests, we know they work, now let's rewrite the code from scratch for what you said, Jonathan, the scalability, right? But I also would like to say that's the perfect reason to get a few more people into this project so we can move a little bit faster. Because right now, it's going to take us a while to get examples and help files and all these little pieces going. And, I announced this on Reddit about the talk last week, and I got 15 people that are like, that's awesome, I want to download and test it. And I was like, it might not actually work today. Maybe you want to wait 3 more days, because we're finishing some bugs. But yeah, I assume that we're probably going to have some rewrite coming here.
Well, it's only 0.01. You're not even at a 0.1 dot.
So we got 135 commits, of which probably 118 of them are me doing spell check.
That works, man.
Yeah. Actually, I would like to point out that.
But you guys are doing a great job. I know you.
It hasn't always been a great time working collaboratively. Sometimes people don't always appreciate my code.
Thanks for putting that online,
Yeah. So it's a work in progress.
Hey, it's a 0.0.
But my thought about this project is there's nothing else like this that I see, and it's kind of filling some gaps. So I hope that it helps some people.
But that's really the point too, is that, hey, it's a start, and if you wanted to make it bigger, that's why it's on GitHub, that's why it's here. You can certainly, fork it to do what you want. Certainly, ask to do pull requests and put it back to the community. That's why, this whole process and community is all about. So that's why we get together, we have conversations, and we do community, is because we want to help each other and we want to share. And certainly, I know Mike is definitely open to it, and certainly, Stephen and Greg are certainly open to it, and that's why they got involved. And so if you want to look into it and get help with it, certainly do it. And if you want to just take it and keep it your own, you can do that too. So I think that's what community is all about.
The other thing that I've always kind of thought about in the back of my head with this is that somebody has some of these scripts somewhere. Maybe they don't have it in a module, maybe they don't have it in PS Gallery, but somebody's got something somewhere, right? Maybe I'm raising some awareness because I put it out there and someone starts chiming up. But I always thought that as this grows, we're either going to absorb some other people's stuff, or someone's going to come along and absorb our stuff into their module, right? And maybe that's what Jonathan's talking about, like scalability. Like someone comes along and says, you guys got some good ideas. Let me show you what I did because I'm doing this times 1,000, right? So let me take your ideas and rewrite some code or whatever. So I don't know where this module goes. I'd love to build it up, and I'd love to say that I'm a maintainer of a module, but if my code gets sucked into someone else's module and it helps someone else build their tool out, I'm cool with that too. It's just that these are the problems I have at work, and I don't see anybody that's got anything that's really kind of like targeted towards that. That doesn't mean that Jeremy doesn't have scripts in his environment to do the same exact thing. We all do that. I'm just trying to put it out there to help someone else who doesn't have it. So, but I welcome the help from anybody who's willing to jump in and say, hey, I got some things I can do for you. Steve, why don't you unmute your mic and say something?
He's hiding.
So, interesting. I don't know who's talking. Try again.
Go ahead.
I was.
We have a suspect for the cranky.
Sure. Hey, let me just say, both of these guys have put in so much work to this project, and Steve unfortunately, has put in a lot of time. I mean, last night, Steve works for Chocolatey. It's a new position he took about 2 months ago, and he loves it, and he puts in a full day every day. And last night, as soon as he finished his gig, he jumped on with me, and we did 6.5 hours last night. And the guy doesn't ever complain, and he's willing to just jump in and help. I would say to you guys, if you haven't already, if you are not in the PowerShell Slack or on Discord, you are making a huge mistake, because I have jumped into there heavily in the last 6 months, and I am pretty intimidated at the names that I see that are in there, but I have yet to ask a question and get any kind of negative feedback from anybody. That's kind of how I met Steve, and I've met just a bunch of great people in there. Today, some dude was helping me solve my AD backup problem. It's just, if you need to get past the problem and you don't have a resource to ask in-house, or if you are the PS guy in-house and you can't answer your own question, that is a great community. Not only our channel, I mean, we've started to see questions coming into our channel, but just in the bigger community, you just, if you're gonna be in the PowerShell community, you gotta be in that Slack channel. It's just a great place to get knowledge. Even if you sit there and just watch the text go by, there's just some amazingly smart people in there that just ask questions in there, and you just pick up so much knowledge. So if you have not done that yet, you gotta get there. I would just say it's gotta happen. I should check it out. That should probably go up.
Was a quick thing on the Slack channel. So today I was trying to get a OpenSSH installed on a couple boxes I have and just a HyperV lab I have set up. So it's all, you know, on its own network. It has no internet access. It's just something I'm doing on my work laptop just to talk to them on PowerShell 4. And I was going through the portable OpenSSH GitHub and looking all over the place trying to find a compiled version of OpenSSH that I could download on these machines and install. And the one I kept finding was uncompiled, and I couldn't do anything with it. And you know, you can't do add Windows capability if you're offline. And sure enough, I type in the PowerShell Slack. Does anybody know where I can get the install or you know, some instructions on how to install OpenSSH? And within like 30 seconds, someone comes back and sends me a link. I click on it, and I'm like, oh, there it is, compiled. Everything's, you know, perfect. Just hold it down, put it on my lab, and now it's working.
Are you lucky enough to have relatively recent Windows 10?
It's running Server 2019, but the add capability doesn't work if you don't have internet access.
Really?
Yeah.
So, you know, I had an interesting problem when I was building this lab. One of the reasons I think I'm kind of behind on some of the scripts, I spent a long time trying to get VirtualBox working right, and it just didn't, and I can't explain why. I had VirtualBox set up, I had clients, and the clients could all get out of the internet, but the clients couldn't talk to each other. No matter what networking config I set up in VirtualBox, it just would not work. So I blew it away, and this is the first time using Hyper-V, and I have to say, it's pretty easy to use. It's supposed to get, yeah, I mean, like really easy. And I dipped my toe in the waters with Vagrant this month, and I'd like to do a presentation on that. We'll talk about that in the future. Vagrant is just like all kinds of cool, pulling down a VM and getting it up and running in like 10 minutes. So between Vagrant and Hyper-V, it's pretty easy to have a demo environment set up in like 25 minutes.
There's like 3 PowerShell modules that will also do the same thing.
So there's automated lab, I know, but here's what so I don't know if he's still in the chat, but I'm been talking with CTM Cisco, Francisco Navarro. He's a big fan of automated lab, and we're talking about having him present later in the year on automated lab. I have no problem with those tools, but here's what every one of my demo labs is going to be. Set up a VM, and I'm going to build my own scripts. So I don't need all the other stuff that comes with any of these tools. I just want the VM.
You can build your scripts into the VM.
I know, but
that's part of it.
But I'm an AD guy, and my scripts are basically make 5 accounts, do DC promo.
It has test scripts that you can actually run.
I understand.
50,000 AD.
But I spent an hour trying to get automated lab working, and it didn't work. And I can do a DC promo script in like 10 minutes. So my point is, those things are great, but you know, we have Jonathan on the call. He's a Microsoft PFE, and I bet you Jonathan has environments that he wants to do specific tests in. And he wants to be able to spin those up and spin them down, and Automated Lab and Vagrant and all those are great for that. But if you just want 2 VMs, and then you're just gonna like write your own code, Vagrant, I mean, you almost can't beat it. You go out to the Vagrant cloud, you pick an image that works for you. In the image, it'll say the 3 lines of code that you need to run to suck that down to your machine. And if you have a fast enough internet connection, 10 minutes later, you have a running VM patched. Most of them have Chocolatey built into it, and all the latest patches as well as the agents that you need in there. I mean, it couldn't be any easier. And I know all those tools are great, but I just don't have a need for most of the after a VM is built.
Looks like we need some presentations on that.
Huh?
We need some presentations on those modules.
So we're gonna, Automated Lab, we're gonna do. Francisco's gonna do that sometime in the future. I was thinking about doing Vagrant if I can get myself up to speed on it. The thing with Vagrant is,
Azure Dev Labs.
excuse me?
Azure Dev Test Labs too is a new thing. Instead of
Yeah,
stuff in the cloud,
so-
you can just do it that way. But that assumes that you're on the cloud too.
Yeah.
So I'd like to see some of that too, Jonathan.
Yes, I mean, I just don't have enough experience with any of these tools yet to feel confident to give a talk about it.
Oh, yeah, certainly.
But if someone does, man, that's a perfect talk. I mean, but literally like a lightning things, I probably, if we had I don't know what the bandwidth is in here on the guest, but I probably could pull down a Linux image in 3 minutes during that 10-minute demo and have it running with Vagrant. Because it's 2 lines. I don't know if anybody's ever seen it. And they give you the lines in the cloud. So you basically open up VS Code, you make an ini, you paste those 3 lines in and you execute it. And all of a sudden, your bandwidth is just getting blown away as it's sucking down this image from the cloud. And then it's on. It's pretty amazing. So anyway, I just had a very good experience with Hyper-V this time. VirtualBox let me down. I don't know if I'm going back to that one ever again.
How do you really feel?
I blew a week and a half trying to get that to work. Because I just kept thinking I was doing